In a dark alley on a silent night, a man was running, fearing for his life. He looked back, worried about whether he was still being followed. Relieved, he thought he had escaped his pursuer, which made him lower his guard. His fate, however, was near, like a sharp blade about to touch his neck. In those seconds, he felt as if someone had wished for his departure from this world. He begged, asking the person to let him go, even offering money to escape his situation. However, his pursuer only wanted to watch the chaos unfold. After the night was stained red and the alley returned to silence, the day finally dawned. Our boy, a high school student still drowsy, was on his way to school. He found it frustrating to head to class right after a sleepless night of work. Upon arriving, he noticed that many classmates were already present, but he was exhausted. Without saying a word, he passed by everyone, looking for his seat to rest. Meidu, the class president, kind to everyone, greeted our boy, but he was not in the mood for conversation, as he was extremely tired. This left his classmate Mo Shuji embarrassed, since he didn't receive a greeting in return. Nagas Rina had her own opinion about our boy. She found it pointless for Meidu to talk to someone like him, but the class president didn't share that opinion, and the standoff continued while our boy kept resting. Another student, equally disliked by most, Arid Nas, began complaining about him as well. Hirashi Shanuk, a hot-blooded student respected by his gang, entered. As soon as he saw his friends, he responded to their greetings. Looking back, Hirashi noticed something that caught his attention. It was our boy, still slumped over his desk, taking a nap. The sight of the sleeping student irritated him. He decided to approach, speaking loudly. However, our boy's sleep was so deep that not even Hirashi's yelling could wake him. This greatly irritated the troublemaker. He thought that perhaps being a heavy sleeper could be a good thing. On impulse, he raised his hand to try touching the student who just wanted to keep sleeping, but he was stopped mid-action. Startled, the delinquent froze as our boy asked what he wanted and told him to speak quickly because he was sleepy. Shanuk, angry, demanded that our boy release his arm immediately. Sarcastically, our boy replied that he would let go, since Shanuk wouldn't be able to move anyway. Arashi became even more annoyed, thinking the guy was a weirdo. While holding his wrist, he tried to pretend he wasn't hurt. The beautiful student Kanzaki Rin asked her classmate to stay quiet. She was not only beautiful, but also talented. Arashi was furious because he hadn't even spoken to her yet, but was already being scolded. Another girl stepped in front of them, blocking his path. Arashi just observed her in silence. The girl, Hashimoto Mirai, was offended, not just by Arashi but also by the other classmates. Another student, Narun Yoshia, trying to maintain peace, asked her to leave Arashi alone. Even so, our boy continued sleeping. Arashi Shanuk, annoyed that no one would leave him alone, decided to sit in his seat. Suddenly, the classroom fell silent, and everyone took their places. The silver-haired student, being a good example, was already opening her textbook. Meanwhile, the blonde-haired, green-eyed boy was concerned about Mirai. Further ahead, the friend of all was chatting with the student in front of him. It was just another normal day in a classroom full of problems, while our boy continued napping. However, he suddenly felt a strange energy that made him wake up. He didn't get up, but noticed that the energy was coming from Meidu. He realized the energy was moving from the feet upward. Suddenly, he noticed that it was a symbol, and it emitted an intense light. Everyone started to notice the glow, which seemed to envelop the entire room. Within moments, everyone was terrified, not knowing what was happening. As the pentagram on the floor covered the entire class, Mo Shuji, also sensing the strange energy, thought there was no time to think. They needed to evacuate quickly. However, our boy, still in his seat, knew there wouldn't be time for that. Soon, the light intensified, seemingly transporting everyone to another dimension. When the light finally dissipated, everyone found themselves lying on the ground. However, our boy was not among them. Being agile and clever, he wasn't as affected as the others. He realized they were in a stone building with several large columns. For shelter, there was only one exit. Looking at the pentagram, he found it hard to believe, but it seemed that everyone had been swallowed by a white light. Little by little, the other students began to regain consciousness, realizing they were in a completely different place. Dazed, they had no idea how they had ended up there after passing through the white light. Most Shuji, acting as a good leader, admitted he didn't know what was happening but urged everyone to remain calm. Our boy, observing from a distance, saw that Mos was a good leader and could keep the group composed. But as always, there was a catch. Hirashi Shanuk didn't want to waste time. He thought that, one way or another, they had to get out of there. He called 2 more classmates to scout the area. Our boy agreed, saying the idea wasn't bad. However, he asked them to wait. His classmate didn't understand and turned around to see what it was about. That was when our boy warned that he could hear footsteps coming from the other side of the door. Upon hearing this, Hirashi Shanuk stopped to listen carefully. Our boy realized that 2 people were approaching. A man and a woman appeared as the large door opened. It wasn't clear whether they would be able to understand what the students were about to say. The woman seemed young and friendly, smiling as she asked if everyone had calmed down. The surprised students thought the 2 looked like a medieval knight accompanied by a princess. Our boy noticed that the man had the appearance of a swordsman and remained constantly on guard. The woman, although she had a muscular build, appeared normal, nothing extraordinary. She then introduced herself as Leonora, the Archbishop of the sacred nation of Digest. Young Hirashi seemed unable to hold back. Pointing at the 2, he said he had never heard of that country and that everything felt like a joke. Even in the face of such insolence, the Archbishop remained calm and said that it was no joke. Mos Shuji apologized and explained that everything had happened so suddenly that everyone was on edge. He took the opportunity to ask if she knew what had happened to them in that place. She was there precisely to explain the situation. She began to sincerely recount the circumstances. Leonora explained that they had all been summoned to a parallel world as humanity's last hope. Midosuji found it hard to believe any of it. Meanwhile, Arashi continued to be disrespectful, even in the presence of the saint of that country. The knight would never allow anyone to speak that way to her. However, Arashi didn't understand and told the man to shut up, directly challenging him. Leonora, sensing her knight's intentions, asked him to remain calm, reminding him that the young ones had yet to grasp the situation. Even so, Arashi Shanuk lunged at the knight, calling him an old man and saying he didn't care about him. Our boy, watching quietly, noted that the troublemaker didn't even hesitate to challenge a man armed with a sword. The knight kept his eyes on the young man, thinking he should be grateful that he wasn't armed. The action happened so fast that Arashi didn't even have time to react. With a light movement, the knight struck his forehead with the tip of his sword. It wasn't severe or deep, but the message was clear. Everyone was shocked. It became clear that this wasn't a game anymore. The Archbishop once again asked Goss to put away his sword, saying that it was enough. She apologized for the knight's actions and explained that it was not his intention to escalate things. She tried to continue explaining the world and the reason why they had been brought there. However, before continuing, she asked everyone to remain silent. When she did, her gaze shifted, commanding their attention completely. Leonora explained that due to the invasion of the demon race, humanity had tried to resist. However, they didn't have enough power to stop the threat. Our boy thought that stories about demon kings were quite common, repeated for generations. She went on to say that humanity's only hope lay in this final opportunity, and that everyone present was a candidate to become a hero. Curious, Mao asked if she was saying they were supposed to defeat the demon king. Narumi, skeptical, found that impossible, especially since none of them had any combat experience. When the subject of fighting came up, the dark-haired girl with a ponytail seemed discouraged. Many of those present were already terrified enough and didn't want to hear more. Goss, the knight, believed that even though it would be difficult, they should at least try. He made it clear that unless they defeated the demon king, they wouldn't be able to return to their world. The knight's words disheartened those who still had hope. Our boy thought the knight was being harsh, but understood it was likely an attempt to motivate them. Even so, he knew these people, who had always lived in peace, couldn't simply start fighting without preparation. Arashi Shanuk was still questioning the saint. He asked why she had summoned them randomly and said it felt like they were just expected to obey orders. Arashi thought those 2 were the kind of people he hated most. Goss observed the young man and noticed that, despite his attitude, his fighting spirit was intact. Determined to resolve the situation, Goss prepared to draw his sword. He knew he could be useful as a knight or cause problems. But Leonora gently touched the young man's face and healed his wound. When he felt her hands, he realized his injury was healing rapidly. With a gentle expression, Leonora sincerely apologized and tried to ease the tension in the room. Rena, observing everything, still couldn't believe what was happening. Leonora explained that the power she used was known as the system. Trying to clarify, she said that this system could also be called magic. That was when our boy realized Leonora was familiar with their culture. She explained that this power was the reason she had summoned them. Leonora approached Maidu and placed her hands on his forehead. When she did, an intense light was emitted, startling everyone. The light from Leonora's hands enveloped Maidu's body. After the touch, he was able to produce a sword made of the same light, which could be used like a normal weapon. The saint seemed proud of the result, explaining that they now possessed the power of the system. She said that although she had summoned them suddenly, there was no longer a possibility of returning home. Leonora's request could be considered selfish, but she still wished for the young ones to lend their strength. Maidu stated that no matter how much power she gave them, without proper training, they wouldn't be able to do anything. Leonora agreed, acknowledging that to be useful, they would need training. The country would take care of that. As class president, Maidu was used to making tough decisions. Taking responsibility, he said everyone should listen to him. He knew they were afraid, but survival had to be the priority. Besides, he believed that the divine protection granted to them would be useful in dangerous situations. Everyone trusted their leader. Since he had spoken, they agreed. Noticing Maidu's leadership skills, Leonora thanked him and assured everyone that she would grant divine protection to all. For some, this divine protection would resemble telekinesis. Others could control fire. Among them were those who could create massive explosions, summon whirlwinds, or master other elements. Feeling exhausted, Leonora asked if she had granted divine protection to everyone. Stepping out from behind a pillar where he had been quietly standing, our boy raised his hand and said he was still missing. She apologized, admitting she hadn't noticed his presence, and lightly touched his shoulder. When that happened, he realized his field of vision was changing, as was the color of his eyes. Looking in Leonora's direction, a status window appeared, displaying her name, age, gender, and other details. That's when he learned that his divine protection was judgment, something that seemed off. Intrigued by the name, our boy asked about it. Leonora explained that this ability allowed him to see details of a target, functioning like a precise analysis. Looking at his own hand, our boy began to understand what she meant. He could now analyze his own data. It was like a status screen in a game. Easy to understand. Shanuk, now with powers, continued stirring up trouble. He seemed eager to show off and boasted to his classmates about the explosion he had just made. Facing our boy, he mocked him for only gaining strange red eyes. Bragging about the damage he had done, Arashi continued acting like the same troublemaker. Nagas mocked him, saying that was what he got for thinking he was so important. Our boy noticed that everyone was acting more confident and powerful. At least he was aware that this power was temporary, something merely granted to them, not earned. After confirming that everyone had received their divine protection, Leonora realized it would be difficult to control them. She also knew they must be tired, so she allowed them to rest for a while. That same night, the hero candidates were taken to their personal rooms. However, our boy felt he should gather information before going to sleep. Meanwhile, two soldiers on watch questioned why they had to patrol so late. Mocking the situation, they said the hero candidates defeating the Demon King seemed like fantasy. Hiding behind a tree, listening to everything, was our boy. He noted it was the third time he had encountered guards. Security was clearly increasing. He used judgment to examine the soldiers and discovered that only one had swordsmanship as an ability. Our boy reflected that although everyone could receive the system, or whatever they chose to call it, not everyone did. Additionally, the geography surrounding the castle resembled a typical fortified city. As for the castle interior, he was curious, but it was heavily guarded and strongly built, so he decided to wait until dawn. He noticed that the girls had also found an open space to practice. However, one of them felt that something was off. Nas, joining them, said she couldn't sleep either. Now, the three of them were beginning to familiarize themselves with their divine protections. Our boy observed the type of divine protection each one possessed. That was when a strange sensation covered his entire body. One of the girls heard a weird noise and asked if the others had noticed it. They all became frightened. Before them appeared a gigantic monster. Terrified, they had no idea what to do. From a distance, our boy thought he had never seen a creature like that before. It resembled a lizard. He activated judgment to analyze it and saw that the monster's species was extremely aggressive. Its stats were far superior to Nas's. The monster suddenly released a gust of wind toward the girls, forcing them to run. The massive creature chased after them, fast on all fours, but only in a straight line. It didn't seem intelligent. Its skin appeared tough, and our boy doubted whether a blade would be effective. Even so, he decided to take a chance and launched a blade toward the lizard. He hit the target, but the attack didn't do much damage. The blades had been effective, but the cuts were shallow. Meanwhile, the three girls kept running, unaware that our boy was nearby. One of them tripped on a rock and fell. It was Naga's, the girl with long pink hair. The others were worried, unsure of what to do as the monster closed in on their fallen friend. Naga sat on her legs, still in pain from the fall. Remembering what caused it, she looked back. She saw the monster approaching and froze. The creature raised its claw. In shock, her first instinct was to cover her face with her hands and close her eyes. After a moment, she slowly opened one eye to see what had happened. Stopped by a blade still on the ground, Nace was in shock as her friends called out to her, trying to help her up so they could keep running. Rena wanted to know what had happened and who had saved her, since they had seen nothing except the blade striking the monster. The girls urged each other to run quickly, as none of them wanted to encounter another monster. Meanwhile, our boy, still hidden, thought there was no real reason for him to save them, other than his own conscience. He was also amazed to realize that monsters like that were wandering around the world. As he retrieved his blades from the monster, he sensed another presence, something so powerful it went beyond a simple sensation. It was an instinctive warning that his life was at risk. He knew someone was nearby, even the exact direction they were in, and thought it best to leave. He got out of there as quickly as he could, and from a distance, noticed someone was watching him. Seeing that the monster had been defeated, the observer decided to ensure it was truly dead. Stepping on the creature's head, they thought the hero candidates had been disappointing and useless. However, upon noticing that the last one to flee had the same scent as them, they became very excited. Everyone looked at the creature with a certain disdain. Meanwhile, Goss explained that this monster had been found near the royal capital. This made Midu start thinking more seriously about the situation. Our boy didn't like seeing that giant creature either. It was only then that he fully realized what awaited them. The girls were equally terrified at the sight of the exposed monster. The knight warned that the Demon King was dragging the monsters into despair, making them crave human flesh. The scientists confirmed traces of spells, likely cast by a mid-level demon. Once again, our boy was listening and observing everything from behind a pillar. He found it interesting that they were using terms like spells and magic levels, as they had before. Menu was so concerned that he wanted to learn more about the monster that had been controlled by a demon. The blonde-haired young man with glasses said that strong demons could control weaker ones. He explained that the term monster referred to a creature transformed by mana. He was still in the middle of his explanation when he considered the possibility that the demon was watching everything at that very moment. Believing that fear would only lead people to failure, our boy, though calm and disciplined, had to control himself to avoid succumbing to fear. Shanak said that everyone needed to remain calm because they wouldn't be able to return to their world unless they eliminated the guilt as fear constantly consumed them. Our boy thought they had finally realized this wasn't just a simple game. Once again, the saint approached everyone and asked them not to be afraid. She told them they simply didn't know how to use their new powers yet, and all they needed was training. She explained that they had been chosen from another world as hero candidates, and that their growth rates would vary. A week passed since the students had begun their training. However, since our boy had a power that was not suited for combat, he was assigned to the library. He would look out the window, watching his classmates train and strengthen their abilities while he simply studied books. All this happened because his ability, judgment, was not considered a divine protection suitable for battle. At the Archbishop's suggestion, he spent his time reading in the library. He also became the target of jokes and ridicule from his friends, who mocked him for having a weak power. It happened because they lacked knowledge about history and culture. There also seemed to be no information about demons in the library, and so time passed. His classmates continued training while he observed from the sidelines. He noticed that, just as Leonora had mentioned, the students were growing at an astonishing rate. In his opinion, the 5 strongest were Narumi, our boy, Kanzaki, Hashimoto, and finally Neas. Neas was experiencing an extraordinary growth rate. However, there was another person, the class leader and class favorite, Midu. He was becoming highly skilled in swordsmanship through training with the soldiers. He was getting faster and more experienced, yet always maintained a peaceful and calm demeanor, always expressing gratitude for the guidance he received. Our boy, looking at the status window, noticed a significant change in Midu. Among the many details in his profile, he had an impressive ranking in attack, defense, agility, endurance, and mana. It was a rapid progression, even for a genius. His thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Arashi and the others. They disturbed our boy, who was standing in a corner observing, and took the opportunity to make their usual jokes. He no longer cared. Those guys were always the same. The three of them always gathered to annoy him. Even the girls looked at him with indifference. One of the boys asked our boy why he was being ignored and suggested that he try talking to everyone. He simply stuck out his foot, making the boy trip and fall. Then he asked what was wrong, since the boy had just fallen, on his own. It was evident to everyone what our boy had done, but they couldn't continue the commotion because someone was approaching. It was the saint and her knight. When she arrived, she had to defuse the situation to prevent them from being punished. She looked at the others who were training and noticed they were becoming more efficient. She thanked the guard for informing her. This way, she was able to see with her own eyes that everyone was growing quickly, just as she had expected. She announced to everyone that she had decided to move forward with the plan, which caused some concern among them. She explained that she wanted them to engage in combat practice against monsters. These words didn't sit well with everyone. Many became tense and anxious. Our boy seemed to be the only one taking everything seriously, as he already understood the risks of combat. The training exercises were explained while everyone was in the middle of a forest, a place full of obstacles, making it impractical to move in large groups. The participants had to split into teams of 2 or 3 people. Upon hearing the instructions, Rina invited Shuji to form a team, and another blonde girl showed interest in joining them. Thus, each participant found their partner or group. Arashi partnered with his 2 friends. Meanwhile, Shio, though reluctant, ended up accepting to work with Narumi. Since the teams had already been decided, Goss, observing the surroundings, noticed that 2 participants were still without a group. Kanzaki then approached our boy and asked if he wanted to team up with her. It seemed that no one else wanted to work with Kanzaki. Her presence was seen as intimidating, which made her laugh casually. Despite this, he didn't mind and accepted the proposal without hesitation. Kanzaki was confident, indifferent, and proud, traits our boy quickly noticed. When she realized she was being observed, she showed discomfort and asked why he was staring at her. He played it off, saying he was just looking around. She shook her head disapprovingly and continued. Leonora took the opportunity to inform them that this exercise would be special. She declared that the team that defeated the most monsters would receive a reward. Then she announced the start of the training. The teams dispersed into the forest. Kanzaki took the lead, walking firmly, while our boy moved more slowly, analyzing the terrain around them. At one point, she stated that he could leave all the protection to her, considering herself superior. He agreed without question and declared that he would fully trust her. Kanzaki, looking to provoke a reaction, commented that he seemed to lack any sense of pride. However, he remained focused, interested in observing how she would handle combat situations. A short while later, he sensed the presence of 4 creatures nearby, suggesting that they were already surrounded. They were small, rough-looking monsters wielding wooden sticks as weapons. When the girl saw them, she hesitated, questioning whether these were really the opponents mentioned. The small creatures, displaying unexpected agility, quickly advanced to attack them. Kanzaki immediately used her power, commanding one of the monsters to kneel before her. Unable to resist, the creature obeyed. Our boy noted that her power was one of domination, evident by how easily she controlled the monster. He observed the skilled way Kanzaki handled the situation. He noticed she hadn't realized other monsters were approaching. He warned her that more enemies seemed to be nearby. Now aware, Kanzaki ordered the monster already under her control to drop its weapon. Although she exuded authority and power, Kanzaki seemed exhausted, which piqued our boy's curiosity. He silently questioned what could be happening to her while staying alert to what came next. She explained that she ended up like that whenever she used her divine protection for an extended period. He understood that such an action consumed a large amount of her mana and suggested that she eliminate the creature quickly. Immediately she questioned the order, noting that the monster had a slightly humanoid appearance. However, he, being used to similar situations, considered it a trivial concern. He made it clear to his partner that those beings were enemies, and that there was no reason to let them go. She understood the gravity of the situation, knowing that if she let them go, they would return later to attack them again. The young fighters realized that despite Kanzaki's powers, she was still a naive student accustomed to living in a peaceful world. Even so, our boy wanted to confirm whether she would be able to make the right decision in the face of danger. She hesitated. More similar monsters began appearing in the area. She was still controlling the first one when she was warned that the others had already arrived. Kanzaki stated that she had already noticed their presence and ordered them to kneel as well. They all obeyed immediately. Our boy asked what she intended to do next, but she told him to be quiet and help her. He reminded her that she had previously refused any help from him. Frustrated upon realizing that he was right, she understood that there was only one choice left for her to make. Kanzaki took a deep breath, gathering the courage she needed for her next command. Then she ordered the monsters to twist their own necks. With no alternative, they obeyed. The monsters eliminated themselves, while our boy watched in silence. He realized that she was capable of carrying out lethal commands, but it all seemed too much for her. It was her first time seeing lifeless bodies on the ground, and now she knew she had been wrong to think it would be simple. Our boy reminded her that those creatures had attacked them first, and that their intent was to eliminate them. He stated that she couldn't afford to show pity to enemies if she wanted to stay alive. Their opponents would never have mercy on her, and that was an undeniable truth. She observed our boy, unable to understand how he remained so calm despite not having any combat abilities. She realized that he exuded confidence and composure. He reassured his partner, saying that keeping his nerves under control was his strongest skill. Additionally, he told her they should move forward, but suggested that she go back if she was afraid. Irritated and feeling challenged, she placed her hands on her hips and declared that she would never turn back. She showed a firm intention to continue, even though she knew her courage was only superficial. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, the situation was difficult for the other team members, who were running to escape the monster attacks. The strategy was to join forces and attack all at once. Two girls combined their powers. One launched a gust of wind while the other fired a stone bullet. Their attacks were coordinated, but the monster they were facing was much larger. They weren't as lucky as our boy and his partner. Terrified by the size of their enemy and unsure how to react, the trio faced a dangerous situation. Our boy's partner believed that they had to do everything possible to return to their world. She missed her grandfather and wanted to show him that she had matured, hoping to make him happy. Kanzaki's teammate questioned whether they should keep going, as there was a risk of getting lost. She didn't care. She believed she understood the situation but was underestimating the forest. She looked back, thinking her partner was too arrogant, convinced that all men were like that. She stared at him so much that he felt uncomfortable and asked why she was looking at him. However, before she could answer, they heard a terrifying scream and quickly realized it came from their friends. That particular scream was from Hashimoto. Our boy realized the girl was in trouble. He asked his partner what they should do. Without hesitation, she said they were going to help. He praised her, thinking it was admirable that she cared about others. Despite the compliment, she was upset because she didn't know that others thought of her that way. A little further ahead in the forest, Hashimoto was indeed in serious trouble. Also injured, the blonde young man who was with her had failed to defend her from the monster's attack. She told him to leave. He responded that he couldn't just abandon her. The enormous monster raised its claws to strike the boy, but it was stopped. Kanzaki arrived at the exact moment and ordered the monster to halt. With great effort, she managed to keep it still. When the blonde young man realized that the girl had come to their aid, he thanked her. However, she told him to take the injured girl and leave, as she wouldn't be able to hold the monster for long. Analyzing the situation, our boy realized that the girl's power had different effects depending on her effort. He looked at Narumi and asked if Hashimoto was okay. Narumi informed him that she was unconscious but breathing. Our boy told him to carry her on his back and leave the area as quickly as possible. Before leaving, the blonde young man asked if there was anything he could do to help. However, our boy asked if he would leave the girl suffering. She was injured and needed assistance. The blonde young man said goodbye, apologized, and said he would lead the rest to them. They then told him to find Midu or Leonora and ask for help. Now only our boy and the girl who was still holding the monster at bay remained. He decided to activate his judgment and realized that it was a type of mutant creature with some enhanced stats. This was concerning because the monster's fur looked extremely tough, and he doubted his attacks would do any damage. He also didn't know exactly what mutant species meant in this case. At that moment, his partner, sweating, screamed that she couldn't hold on any longer. Her powers were weakening. The young man thanked her, as she had managed to buy enough time for their friends to escape. Now it was his turn to get them out of there, but her legs could no longer support her due to excessive mana consumption. As the monster prepared to attack her, our boy threw a smoke bomb. With that, he was able to grab his partner in his arms and get them both out of there. The time he bought wasn't much, but it was enough. He managed to get her away from the scene, asking her to stay quiet so the monster wouldn't hear them. Now they were hiding behind a tree, observing the creature from a distance. Kanzaki wanted to know where he had gotten the smoke he used against the monster. He explained that it was just a smoke bomb he had made during training. Clearly, this was a lie. Our boy always carried that equipment with him. Shinju had a basic survival kit for situations where his life was at risk. Kanzaki apologized, and our boy wanted to know why she was apologizing. It was because it had been her idea to help the others. He told her there was no need to apologize, but it would be nice if he at least heard a thank you. At that moment, she smiled shyly and said, "Thank you." He complimented her, saying that if she were always like that, people would like her more. He once again asked her to stay quiet, as they were trying to hide, and with her shouting, it was becoming difficult. She then whispered and asked if they should run. He believed there was no need to flee. The monster was furious, searching for them. But the ones who appeared were others. It was a trio, and at the center was Midu, who asked if that was the monster that had attacked his friends. He made it clear that, from that moment on, he would be its opponent. Midu quickly activated the evil-slaying sword. He was ready to engage in combat against that terrifying creature, showing no hesitation in the face of the threat. The brave Midu arrived at the monster's location, stopping right in front of it, determined to subjugate it with his sword and courage. He charged at the creature, which was several times larger than him. The uncontrollable beast also attempted to attack the young man, who struggled to fight back. With precise and well-aimed strikes, he managed to inflict significant damage on the monster. However, he wasn't alone. His partner, who had also joined the battle, was supporting him. She warned him to be careful as she launched a fireball at the creature. The pink-haired heroine spoke to the monster, telling it that this would be its end and that it wouldn't be able to endure much longer. Midu thanked Rina for her excellent work, as she had successfully cast her flame power on the monster. Still under the effects of the fire attack, the monster, despite being weakened, remained enraged and furious. Rina noticed that the creature didn't seem to be going down so easily. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing for the next part. Thanks for watching, ninjas.